Hello and welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the deferred sales trust, is the best way for you to exit highly appreciated businesses, real estate, cryptocurrency, save a failed 1031 exchange, so you can defer millions of dollars in capital gains tax or help your clients do the same, so everyone can create and preserve more wealth. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swartz. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, and wealth minds and crypto minds and commercial real estate minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration so together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. We're also streaming on Expert CRE Secrets, where we have guests that are going to combine on both. And today is not going to let us down, because we have a gentleman for the past 13 years has built a private investment firm that specializes in acquiring and developing corporate housing, luxury rentals, and event venue investments in emerging real estate markets, by providing above average returns for his partner investors. He has extensive knowledge and expertise in residential and commercial real estate and has worked with some of the biggest names in the industry. And in fact, in the past decade, his firm has closed over 300 plus real estate transactions, and most recently has developed a full service corporate housing investment, in which it's Boron Capital owns and manages. Please welcome to the show with me, Blake Templeton. Hey, Blake, how you doing?
Brett, doing good. How about yourself, my man?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. I'm loving the hat that you're rocking today, and I'm excited to dive right into your story. So for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you tell them a little bit about your story? And by the way, we'll be talking all things three-dimensional commercial real estate investing here in a minute with Blake. But let's start with Blake's story. Go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, I think big picture is start the college dropout without a penny to my name, no one to own a business some way, somehow, and didn't know you couldn't defer student loans any longer. So I had to humbly move back in with mommy and daddy back in 2006. And ended up getting a letter in the mail to go to a conference for real estate. Went to it, realized that I was wired for numbers. It was less real estate. I was wired for numbers. Knew nothing about renovations and so forth. Fast forward, ended up doing 300 plus transactions of wholesales and flips and so forth in the residential area. And then 2012 went into commercial real estate. Went to corporate housing, and which is fully furnished, all bills paid, sort of like a hotel, but we did that in the oil industry. And then still have corporate housing, went into apartments and wedding venues. I think that intro was fantastic, but it's a little outdated. So what we've realized is, most importantly, is flowing into your podcast is the capital gains is what was hitting us when we were doing a syndication. So for instance, apartments, syndicating an apartment value add deal, you find the treasure and then you do the value add, and now it's time to sell this treasure. And obviously now if our investors didn't go into a 1031 or something, we'd have this massive capital gain issue. So we ended up shifting into running hedge funds in self-storage, mobile home parks, and cryptocurrency. And in these funds, we actually never sell. So we never sell the actual asset. And specifically in self-storage and mobile home parks, how we fight against that largest expense, which is the tax, is we then after the investor gets all their money back, we then refinance the property, and the investors get to stay in the deal. So they still own interest proportional to their amount of money in the deal, but all their money, all their actual principals back in their hands, and we refinance. So instead of doing the value add and then selling and then having that capital gains consequence, we now do the value add and then refinance.
Love it.
And pay that distributions back to the investors, but that's a loan. Yep. Versus a capital gain, so there's no taxes.
So fun. Okay, so we're going to geek out, Blake and I, here in a minute. But Blake, and I appreciate that. That's really cool that we're already diving right into like the show topic. But I want to take one other step back and help our listeners get to know you even better. I want you to go back to maybe your high school days, right? And maybe you're playing some sports, maybe you're just in
Sure.
that math class, and you're getting calculus done, and you're
Yeah.
getting all the number stuff. I believe we've all been given certain gifts in this life, and these gifts have been given to us to be a blessing and helping to others. Some people call them strengths, some people call them superpowers. I believe they're God-given gifts that have been given to us to just make a difference for more people and bless more people. So I'm curious, besides being wired for numbers, maybe what's one other gift that you believe you were given, and how does that help how you help and bless people today?
That's a really good question. I think that that really came about when first, as we started the business, I was prideful and arrogant and thought I knew everything and wanted to do it my way because I had a vision of how I was gonna, own the island and so forth. And God actually just set me aside, and it was this revelation moment in my life where he just started really teaching me about King Solomon and how King Solomon, when he was at this meeting in the road, he actually, the Lord asked him, I'll give you one thing. What is it that you want? And he could have asked for anything. It could have been money, could have been, women, could have been whatever he wanted, but he asked for wisdom. And as he was becoming king, the fact that he asked for wisdom, God said, you could have asked for many other things, but because you asked for wisdom, then I will give you the wealth of the nations, and you'll have more wealth than any king before you. And so it's wisdom, the three-dimensional aspect of what we do from real estate, from self-storage and mobile home parks to cryptocurrency, is walking in God's wisdom. And the three dimensions is the first dimension is the investment, how you're actually investing, the source, the power of the investment's got to be sourced by God's wisdom. And the opposite of that would be watching the news, watching the as the storm of the drama is happening, watching the day-to-day optics and creating your circumstantial emotions based on what you're seeing and feeling from narratives created by someone else. And so God's wisdom would be calculating the items from what we'd call from heavenly places, from a non-earthly volatile scenario, and seeing it from his perspective. And then second dimension would be it's got to be tangible. So, if we had time to get into crypto, how we'd call that a virtual tangible, a virtual real estate, if you will. And then the third aspect is it has to create exponential wealth. And a lot of people are become what I call the natural condition of man, where they fall asleep and become a machine. They literally kind of get stuck in that a piece of cash flow or a something coming around the horizon, but there's no quantifiable picture of how much money it's actually going to produce. And understanding that inflation is now 15%. CPI might say it's anywhere from 2 to 7%, depending on what things are in the basket. But it's 15% because of all this printing of all the money, and it's devaluing the US dollar. Matter of fact, the Fed, they have a M1 money supply chart, and it actually says we've expired this chart because the chart is, it's just catabolic. It literally is like a jet going straight up of the inflation rate. So in God's wisdom, it would be this question of like, how might I always outpace inflation? Like, it's not even cool just to make inflation, because depending on your tax strategies, if you're following Brett's system or not, like, you're still probably paying taxes on that. So you got to outpace inflation, and that then puts us into why we invest in self-storage and mobile home parks and cryptocurrency.
So pause there, because this is amazing. You're dropping so much fire here and wisdom. I love it. So three dimensions. First dimension, we're talking about looking at where your source of your pulse, the pulse of what's going on, of what's true, what's real, what's reality, and then also being God's wisdom, heavenly wisdom, versus the news, which is drama, which is agendas, which is oh my gosh, chaos, right? And they're just gonna so where are you first getting that source to even look at potential investments, right? Because it's a big deal. Because like money is talked about more than just about anything in the Bible, right? And you're exactly right. That's one of the most alluring things for all of us to not get caught up in. And but it is being good stewards with that wealth, right? Of which God's given us the opportunity to do that and be a blessing to others as well. And so, where are you first sourcing that? That wisdom, right? Is it coming from God or is it coming from earth, right? And so I think that's awesome. Number two, you said, is it tangible? And I love how you said crypto because I was curious how this was going to go. I just interviewed a guy on cryptocurrency, his last interview. He's brilliant. And there seems to be, generally speaking, three camps. There's the traditional stocks, bonds, mutual funds people, pension fans, IRAs, Dave Ramsey put it in the Roth, put it in the IRA. Then there's like the commercial real estate, like hands-on value add development, brokerage, find deals, partner deals, syndication, hedge fund stuff. And then there tends to be the crypto folks that are perhaps definitely not stock market folks. I feel like they're more real estate. They want to be real estate, but they maybe don't understand or have the people to partner with. So it's kind of these three camps of these major amounts of wealth in the world. And it's how do you bridge the gaps? Now we have a cool thing called a deferred sales trust, which we bridge with the tax part, because we talk about it's not just about cash flow anymore. It's about tax flow, because guess what? We're at 30 trillion now, right? The government is, I guess we as the people, right? We pay the taxes. And so they have to increase. So it's not just cash flow anymore. That's not because inflation's going up. It's tax flow as well. And it's efficiencies there. So I love how you touched on that. And we'll dive in that here in a minute for the virtual tangible of crypto. And number three, you said the exponential wealth, right? How do you make sense of all of this given inflation? So is that a fair summary so far?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Now let's dive into your fund there. Or if you have any comments on that, you can go ahead and comment.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand. So it's like it's not just a cliche of like, okay, God's thoughts and then not earthly thoughts, but it's like the lamp before your feet and the light before your path on everything. So how that would be for us is like there's optics and metrics that drive stories. Numbers tell a narrative, but that's still an earthly picture that would have to be secondary. So just like in real estate, when you're buying a deal, so our deals are typically 10 to 40 million in large self-storage community or a large mobile home park community. When you're buying it, the optics and metrics may have all these green lights, like 16 different check marks that has got to hit, but I would still have to then process from the narrative of his voice so I may still have a uncomfortable feeling like there's something with this property I don't feel. So I've got to like silence the numbers above his voice. And so we've not done deals where then we find out later they were hiding a lot of different things in it, or vice versa. All the check marks were not checked. There were check marks that weren't checked. And so if we're just legalistically going in it, and we jumped in, well, then we found out they were, it was, so we then, I have a feeling from God's voice, from his understanding from him that it is a good deal, but the numbers don't check out. Well, we go ahead and do it, and we find out there's a treasure chest of untapped value that they just weren't quantifying. And so same thing goes for crypto. We're looking at the back office, so it's kind of an unfair advantage. We're looking at on the blockchain how many businesses are running, let's just say on the Bitcoin blockchain, the apps that are running, the velocity of the money. So when Bitcoin looks like it's going down because there's an earthly narrative at the moment, we'll pull our Bitcoin. We have a portfolio. We'll pull our Bitcoin, and put it on the side. And if everything's going down, we'll pull everything on the side, but we can see behind in the back office what's happening. So we understand the dynamics of that. There's a false narrative happening at the moment, but the true narrative will actually take over. And so we'll sit it on the sidelines, stake, and earn something around 10% annually while we're waiting, and then we'll put it all back in. And so the problem with someone who is throwing it on a thumb drive in cold storage is you're having to buy into it's just going to do what it's going to do, long-term value. But the idea is there's understanding the 2 millimeter shifts you can make where for example, just quick example on crypto, someone just for arbitrary numbers has $100. Our minimums are 250, but 250,000, but on $100, they keep it in Bitcoin at 62. It drops down to 31. So now they've been cut in half, but when it is at 62, we pulled out and are now making a small, increase, staking it, making 10% annually. And then when it comes back up, then we actually, or we buy back down at 31 and ride it back up. And unfortunately, when they get back up here, they're not even to even because they lost those funds. So they're still below even where we've already doubled our money. And so it's those kind of things that shift. It's just the 2 millimeter things. Last year, kind of big picture on crypto, Bitcoin did, 93% from over 12 months, and net to investors was over 173%. And with our management
When
team.
you're doing it, fantastic. My mind's blowing. I'm so cool. I'm so glad you're going crypto because that's literally our number one focus now. We've done 1031 exchanges, Delaware statutory trust, syndications, real estate, brokerage. I started at Marcus and Millichap as the background, grew up in the real estate industry. But now our focus is crypto because we think, there's so many people who want to exit well and invest into tangible real estate assets, but it has that capital gains tax. So I love all of the things you're saying there. And I love the wisdom aspect. I'm a Christian. And I believe God, gives us wisdom. That's where wisdom comes from. And
Yeah.
so it's by asking and seeking that. And likewise, part of my testimony, and people ask me, why do you believe what you believe? And it's like, well, part of it is evidence, but a lot of it is faith. But I'll say part of why I have my belief and my relationship with God, with Jesus, is everything could be going right in my life. I say family and finance and, school at the time or whatever. Right. But if I wasn't right with the Lord, if I wasn't close to him, something was missing. I couldn't explain it. The opposite though was true. Right. Everything could be going haywire. I mean, just tragedy and chaos and challenges. But if I'm right with the Lord, like I have a peace that I can't
So
explain.
true. Yeah.
And so I think, and I'm going to try to correlate what you're saying there, right? So you're saying, apply that in your personal life, right? But then also apply that to the investments and start there. Is that a fair summary of what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the mindset that unconventional world events beckon us to be good stewards with unconventional strategies. And those unconventional strategies, that would have to come from the wisdom of God. So who's ever running your portfolio, well, it would make sense if they were God directed. Because if they're not God directed, I mean, we have investors all the time. They're like, "Man, I just don't fully agree with where you are spiritually." I'm like, totally cool. But they're like, "But I invest with you because in case you're right, I'd rather my money be God protected." And so it's the mindset
Yeah.
that we're actually surrendering the idea, like, okay, 15 years plus of business and tons of money and in and out of deals, strong rate of returns, but we're surrendering that from the aspect that there's a higher power that actually has more authority over the optics and metrics. And then he would give us a perspective of wisdom to utilize.
A gift, right? A gift. He's giving that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. And by the way, Blake and I met 20 seconds before the show started. Like we're jamming. I actually have to run here in a few minutes too, and we're definitely having it on for part 2 because there's so much here. You never have any idea where these conversations are going to go. But by the way, you can learn more about Blake Templeton at BORONCap.com. It's boroncap.com. Is that how you pronounce it?
Correct.
Yeah, boroncap.com. And so very cool. So let's just chat quickly on capital gains tax. We touched a little bit in the beginning. I want to make sure we live up on the promise there. And so I'm curious, Blake, like, what's the biggest frustration that you're seeing when it comes to those that perhaps are not invested with you yet, right? That are cryptocurrency millionaires that have huge gains and they want to exit, but they're like, dude, I love to invest with you, Blake, into your fund, your real estate fund, your crypto fund. But in order to do that, I'm going to get hammered with capital gains tax. So what's the biggest frustration with exiting highly appreciated cryptocurrency?
Yeah, what we're seeing right now is, I mean, obviously there's that fear of what's the consequences of my actions in investments, especially if something has appreciated quite dramatically. What we're doing though, what the solution we've found is that in our fund we can do what's called a like kind transfer. So someone who has, you know, $10 million in Bitcoin, $20 million in Bitcoin. They bought it in 15 or 16, 17 at 2,000 a coin or something. They can like kind transfer that into the portfolio with no actual tax consequence. And then those funds now can get put into a portfolio, moved around to where they're actually built under our principles, where they can ride, we can ride the narratives, and they don't receive that massive tax consequence in case there is all the volatility. They can remove themselves from all the volatility, but then gain the massive increase. In real estate, that's kind of what we shifted to the fund mindset. So when they're in the fund, when they're actually in the actual real estate fund, self-storage mobile home parks fund, and we're not actually ever selling, but we pay them all their cash back, and then they're actually reaping the benefit of the rewards of the refinance. So that's tax-free, and that's ongoing forever. So when they get all their proceeds back, or their principal back, they then are able to reinvest that again as their natural principal, their original principal, and do it over and over and over. And again, if before I forget, if you guys have any interest in being a part of something like that, that's a 3-dimensional investment in self-storage mobile home parks in cryptocurrency, I'm just going to have you a real quick text, 877-771-0615. So you're going to text this number. Don't call it, because it's not a number you can call, but just text it. And you're going to text the word invest and then the number 1. 877-771-0615, and then invest 1. And then that'll come to me directly, and I will help you in any way I possibly can.
Cool. So I want to make sure I caught that. So I got a client. She has 50 million of Bitcoin, and we just exited 5 million tax deferred to the deferred sales trust. She worked for a big tech company out of Silicon Valley that you would know. And she had never sold, partly because she believed in the future of Bitcoin, but partly because she didn't have a good exit plan for capital gains tax, right? So the other thing is she wanted to do unlike kind, like she wanted to start a company with her college roommate and launch their own dream versus building the big tech company's dream, right? So it's entrepreneurial play. So we exited the 5, and this 5 is like the seed funding, if you will, is a way to think about it, all tax deferred to fund her business venture. So that's number 1. But what you're saying, I think, is like, well, if you just transfer to this fund, right? It's not a sale. It's maybe, I don't know if you said exchange. So I'm thinking of it's kind of like a 1031, but I think 1031 is you sell something and you actually buy something else. But what you're saying is you can remain capital gains tax deferred by going into a like kind crypto fund. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah. And so taking this right now, for example, obviously no one has a golden globe that would tell them exactly what's going to happen. That's why we have to sit in heavenly places. But let's just say she then pills out 5 million and puts that into the fund, and then our goal is to always outpace Bitcoin anyway, and we have the last 2 years anyway. So the mindset would be, it's going to take volatility at some degree, even if it bounces up to 110 and finds a stable point due to the early adoption, due to its emphases. There'll be some volatility. Every time it actually has a drop, she's losing if she stays in cold storage or whatever. But in the fund, we're trading the narrative, so volatility is good.
It and getting cash flow on it versus it being I call it lazy or sleepy money, right? Or it's like sleepy capital that goes into a Delaware statutory trust, and it's like huge fees, lower, not great returns, and you live all control. We're literally out of time, and I'm so sorry. Like, we're up 2 minutes, so I'm gonna have Blake back on, guys. This is just part 1. We're gonna, or maybe bring him on here in a couple of weeks when he has some time, and we're gonna continue this conversation. We're gonna talk about a self-storage fund, his mobile home park fund, the rest of this crypto conversation, because this has me fascinated. I had never heard that you could exit into another fund. And so we're going to dive in more. But Blake, if people want to get in touch with you right now, what's the best place for them to find you?
The best thing is to communicate with me directly through text. Then we'll open up whatever method works best.
So what's that number one more time?
877-771-0615. And then you're going to text the word invest and then space and then number one. So invest one. So again, 877-771-0615. Text invest and then one. We might have lost Brett. But this is what we do. This is our passion. This is who we are. This is the air we breathe. Living in step with God, the light before our feet and the light before our path. And that's what gives me the zeal every single morning to wake up, to serve our clients, to extract greatness out of your investments for you. And it's a pleasure. It's truly a pleasure to do such a thing, especially in times like this. Volatility, again, is good for us in the crypto fund because it allows us to trade the narratives, where if you actually stayed in cold storage, you're having to ride the negative side of the narratives. And every single time you take a negative on the roller coaster down, you're always losing. No matter if it comes back up, you simply lost not only opportunity of potential of that time period, but you lost what your gain was being based on. And so to minimize your losses and exponentially increase your gains, you need a three-dimensional investment. And I don't know if we lost Brett or not, but again, I'll just give you the number one more time, 877-771-0615. You're going to text invest space and then number one. And again, I'll just share. So there's two separate funds, the crypto fund and the self-storage and mobile home parks fund. Self-storage and mobile home parks, you're receiving cash flow, preferred return of 8%. And then you're receiving all your money back. And then
I'm back, guys. I'm so sorry, Blake. You did a great job. I saw you going the whole time and literally like restream. It's crazy. I might have to just go to Zoom again because I do all these fancy graphics. You were amazing. I'm over time. You're coming back for sure, brother man. So text that number. If anyone wants to learn about the Deferred Sales Trust and how we help people exit cryptocurrency or businesses or real estate and have some other cool ways to do it, you go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We also have our masterminds, our crypto DST mastermind, totally free, 10 a.m. PST, 1 p.m. Eastern. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to register, figure out a way to exit well, tax deferred, and then maybe even get one with Blake, right, to invest. Or maybe Blake will have you in our mastermind to talk about what you're doing so people have another option. With all that being said, Blake, thanks for being on the show, brother man. God bless you. We'll talk to you soon. And everyone else, thanks for listening. Thanks for the glitches here and staying through to the end. We'll talk again soon, okay? Bye now.
All right, see you, buddy. Man, God bless you too.